on the ground on you, one's in jet. One's on the ground on you, one's in jet, one's in jet. Inside our jet, inside our jet. I got stuck, and I'm dead. Go for it.
Hit it over. Raymond.
That's our flag. That's our fucking trophy, boys.
Fucking our trophy.
Alrighty, what is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 16 of COD Talks. I am your host, Furs95. We got a special Mother's Day edition for you guys today. Hope everyone had a good Mother's Day. I know I did. Obviously mothers do so much for us, so happy Mother's Day to everyone out there. And without further ado, let's get into the news of the week. So the first topic that I wanted to talk about today were a few roster changes that went down. I don't even know if it was this week. It might have been the week before, but they're kind of old news now, but I just want to touch on them real quick. And the first one being is that Enable has joined TK in place of Methods, who obviously went to Optic Gaming, as we talked about last episode. I think this is a good pickup by TK. I think Enable is a guy that has shown some pretty strong signs in this game in World War II. I know people aren't quite as high on Enable maybe as I am. But again, I think Enable's a veteran leader. He's been around the game a long time. He knows what it takes to win. He's seen a lot of success throughout his career competing in Call of Duty. And I think he's a good fit for this TK roster. I believe he's going to be playing the flex role. I think Accuracy confirmed that. I think it's the roles are going to be Accuracy at the main AR, Enable at the flex, Pharaoh, and Kenny at the 2 SMG position. So I think that's a nice fit for this team. I think Enable's a guy that's demonstrated that he can play both with an SMG and an AR in his hands. It was interesting to hear on the latest CODcast episode that I think it was both Aches and Nameless, who obviously were Enable's previous teammates on EG. They both mentioned that they really thought that Enable should have an AR in his hands, which was a bit surprising because he looked better with a sub on his time on EG. Maybe that was maybe they just thought that his pace was off or something along those lines. But interesting to hear. I know Enable, but again, Enable's a guy that I think he's a strong bar player. And I think he's a guy that definitely is a proven AR as well. So I think Enable fits in well, TK. I think it's a good pickup for them. And I'm excited to see. I think another important thing that Enable brings to the table is that it allows Accuracy to go back to that main AR role. And I think that's where he's most comfortable in this game in particular, for sure. And really all throughout his career, he's been a main AR. So I think that just overall good pickup by TK. I think it was sort of the obvious pickup in terms of players who were available. And I'm interested to see how this roster forms, because I think it's a roster that has a nice balance. You've got Pharaoh, who is a young upcoming talent that I think is still, he's largely unproven still, but I think he's a guy that has a lot of talent. Like I just said, I think he's a guy that really, he's a guy like Decimate as well, who just, I think his ceiling's pretty high. So, hopefully Enable can help, guide him in the right direction, teach him how to play the game properly. And I think that, I think that the sky's the limit for a guy like Pharaoh. And then obviously you have Kenny, who's been arguably the best sub of the game up to this point. He's, super talented guy that I expect to continue to compete at the highest level throughout the rest of the season. And as I touched on earlier, I think Accuracy is definitely back to his most comfortable role. So I think TK is a team that you still got to look out for as the remainder of the season goes on. The next roster change that I also wanted to touch on was Josh joining Splice. So as you guys know, Splice decided to drop Tommy a while back, and they've been kind of struggling and scrapping for a fourth. And it was rumored at one point they were going to get scraps from Unilad, but he ended up joining Red Reserve in place of Josh. So now Josh was basically the best option that Splice had at this point. I don't really know who else they could have gotten. I mean, I guess, I'm sure a lot of people would have wanted to see Swanee join the team, but I don't think him and Madcat would have gone along very well. They're both very slow main AR players, and I just don't think that would have worked out very well. And again, as a lot of people have pointed out, and it needs to be reinforced, is that there's really not a whole lot of talent in Europe outside of Splice and Red Reserve. So, I think this was kind of the safe bet, the safe pick for Splice. I don't really know if it's going to make him a whole lot better, to be honest. I think that despite the fact that there isn't a whole lot of talent outside of Splice and Red Reserve, I actually think it would have been a good move to go for sort of a riskier player I think that Josh, he's been good on Rise, but he hasn't, on Red Reserve, but he hasn't been great. I think he was kind of the clear-cut weakest player. Maybe Joe at times, but Joe's been really consistent. But again, adds a lot to that team. Rated came out and said that even before they decided on dropping Josh. So, I think that I don't expect this to change a whole lot when it comes to Splice. To me, Splice, the biggest thing with Splice has got to be Bance, right? Bance has been pretty underwhelming up to this point throughout World War II. And he's really got to pick it up and be that strong SMG alongside of Jerd, and as well as Mad Cat. Mad Cat's been pretty inconsistent throughout this game as well. So, there's a lot that Splice needs to fix. I think that they weren't just a one-man problem, and I don't know if Josh is necessarily an answer, but Josh is going to be remotivated, right? Obviously, he was not very happy with how things went in terms of his dropping from Red Reserve, so maybe this will remotivate him. But we'll just have to wait and see. Splice has been extremely up and down, largely down this season. I know they've had I think they've made 2 finals, right? But ultimately, I just think Splice. They need all 4 of those players really need to step their game up in order for this team to succeed throughout the rest of the World War II season. So that's really all I have to say in terms of Splice's role change. The next piece of news that I wanted to get into was the latest rule change to the CWL rule set. So earlier in the week, Muddog came on Reddit and posted a slight change to the rule set, which was the M1 Garand is now officially banned from the rule set, as well as Gung Ho is now officially banned from the Airborne division. So obviously this was positive. I think we can all agree that this was a positive change. The biggest question, though, is why now? Why so late, right? We are 6 months. Let's see. So December, January, February, March, April, May. So we are 6 months into this game's life cycle. Over halfway in terms of the CWL season, right? We don't get a full 12 months, right? COD Champs is in August. So we really only have a 10-month season. So we're over halfway from the season being concluded, and we are just now getting the Garand, which literally upon release, we all knew needed to be banned. Like, why is this happening so late? And my only guess is that this has something to do with the Itra Burst being added into the game and adding into the rule set. But it just baffles me. It just baffles me. I don't get it, and I don't really know who to blame. I don't know. It's easy to just go ahead and blame, Sledgehammer. But Sledgehammer's been pretty responsive in terms of implementing official CWL rule set changes. Look at this rule set change. They literally updated it the day of when Muddog came on and announced on Reddit. They literally came in with a hotfix that implemented these 2 bans into ranked play, into esports mode, into game battles, right there. So I don't know if this is Sledgehammer. I'm leaning towards this is just CWL and the guys over at CWL not changing the rule set. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's a lot of stuff I don't know, behind the scenes. Maybe Sledgehammer was really discouraging this ban to ever happen, but this is not acceptable. It's just not. We cannot have a rule, something like this going on still. I mean, this gun should have been banned 6 months ago, at least 5 months ago. I mean, maybe a month after the game when we realized, oh yeah, a two kill AR, 2-shot AR probably shouldn't be the game because it's not competitive. It doesn't take a lot of skill. So I just, things like this have got to get done in a faster manner. They just have to. It is vital because, like I touched on earlier, our seasons aren't even a full year. With each game, it's a life cycle in terms of competitive. It's not even a full year. We only get till August. So changes like this have got to happen towards the beginning of the game. They have to. There's so many reasons why. Ranked play should be playing the same rule set that the pros are playing. That's the whole point of ranked play. The Garand has been allowed in ranked play up to this point. Unacceptable. The Garand has been allowed in game battles up to this point. Unacceptable. And it's just ridiculous. I'm sorry. And I just this is the type of stuff that we cannot be continuing to deal with, because we've been through this routine, right? Look at Black Ops 2, the FAL. The FAL was banned, what was it, like at least 3 months into the game, I think, maybe 2 or 3 months. I can't even remember that far back, to be honest. But again, like, it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous and shouldn't happen. Gung Ho obviously was acceptable, considering the Division's update was fairly recent. That was about a little over a month ago. But the Garand should have been banned a long time ago, and there's no reason it should have taken this long. That's my kind of rant for the day. But let's move on to the next topic, which is, this is another topic that I might rant on a little bit, and that is that the Itra Burst and as well as the bar long barrel attachment have both been added to the gentleman's agreements officially, that was confirmed, I believe, on a few streams the other night. And again, this is one that I know I've been very outspoken about my distaste for gentlemen's agreements, but this is one that I'm gonna be honest, I have not played enough of the game with the Itra Burst in the meta to really give like a firm opinion onto whether or not I feel it's not balanced, or whether it's balanced or not. I know they nerfed it slightly in a recent patch, but again, I don't really see. Look, this is what it comes down to. If there are pros out there who don't think this gun belongs in the gentleman's agreements, I believe Haggie's been outspoken about it. I think Clayster's been outspoken against it. These pros that are out there that genuinely believe that the gun is balanced need to drop a sack of nuts and say, look, fuck your gentleman's agreements. We are going to be playing with this gun because it's a part of the rule set, and they need to make it public. They don't need to do it how Clayster did it back at I think it was Atlanta, where he just basically out of rage just whipped out the Garand mid-series without letting it was Era that they were playing. This was obviously a notorious thing that happened. I believe it was Atlanta, right? Yeah, it was definitely Atlanta, and he just whipped it out mid-series. If there are pros out there listening, please, who genuinely believe that the Itra Burst is balanced, for the love of God, drop a sack of nuts and hold true to your opinions. Don't go buddy and just go along with the flow and go along with groupthink. Drop a sack of nuts and let everyone know before the Pro League starts, before Anaheim starts, and say, look, my team will be using the Itra Burst because it is a part of the rule set. That's not my problem. That's if you got a problem with it, take it up with CWL because it's in the rule set, okay? And I know the pros would get butthurt about it and say, oh, well, they're too slow to make changes and this and that. That means it's on the pros. If like there needs to be, again, this issue comes down to there is a lack of dialogue between the pros and the guys over at CWL who are making the rule set, and as well as Sledgehammer. I mean, Sledgehammer, look, again, there needs to be a majority rule, right? If a majority of pros genuinely believe that the gun is imbalanced, they need to be harping on Mud Dog and everyone else that works at CWL to officially ban it, okay? Because if not, you're going to have pros and teams out there that are going to use the gun. And they should, because it's a part of the rule set, okay? There needs to be a better dialogue. I'm so sick and tired of this issue continuing. And it's not the pros' fault necessarily. I'm not necessarily blaming the pros. But this is incumbent upon Sledgehammer, the guys over at CWL, and the pros as a whole. There needs to be a better dialogue between the three groups. And there just isn't one right now. There just isn't one. And someone needs to take some damn initiative and create a better dialogue. I don't know. That might be easier said than done, but take some initiative because something's got to change. This cycle of, oh, we'll just gentleman's agreement. We'll just ban it by ourselves as a community is got to stop because it's not good for our game. There is no other major esport that has to deal with this shit. And I'm tired of having to deal with it in competitive COD. And I just it's easy for the pros to say, oh well, Sledgehammer doesn't balance things properly, and we don't, Sledgehammer is just not catering to us. I don't necessarily buy that, because again, you look at what they just did with this most recent update. Mud Dog came out and said the Garand is officially banned, Gung Ho is officially banned. That same day, Sledgehammer came in with a patch to update the rule set. So don't tell me it's Sledgehammer's fault for that they don't change the rule set, that they don't follow along with what CWL and the pros want. I'm just not buying it. Until I see evidence otherwise, I'm not buying it. So that's really all I have to say about it. I think that just it comes down to there's got to be a better dialogue between the three groups, between Sledgehammer, between CWL, and between the pros. And there just isn't one. And someone needs to take some initiative to help create one, period. Wow. End of rant. Sorry about all that, guys. These two issues are really frustrating. And I can't imagine how frustrating they are for the pros. Again, I don't want to come across as I'm just harping on the pros, because I think it is unfair. Because look, it is not ideal how many times the meta has been changed. It's just not. And I know Aix pointed out how these games just aren't complete when they're coming out, and he's right. I mean, he really is right. These games are just not complete. But let me also counter by saying, what video game in history has ever come out fully complete, fully balanced, right off the get-go? You want to know the answer? No game ever. No game ever in the history of video games has come out balanced and perfect. And this fundamentally comes back to my number, and I'm going to continue to harp on this as well, is that the number one problem facing competitive COD is annual releases. Annual releases are just killing us. They're killing us because no other major release. Think about how long LOL, League of Legends has been around. Think about how long CSGO. CSGO is what, like a 10-year-old game? Valve has had years to perfect that game. These developers, they only get so many months to perfect and balance their game. And that's what's killing us. That's what's really hurting competitive COD right now is annual releases. And I'm so sick and tired of annual releases. I'm so sick and tired of having to change developers and learn a new game every year. And I just wish we could get some damn consistency by sticking to a title for more than 1 year. That may not happen anytime soon because Activision loves money, which I can't blame them. But if they're serious about esports, they have got to stop with the annual releases. And this is another reason why. The next issue I wanted to get into that arose as well is coaches in competitive COD. So obviously this was a topic that was brought up by, I think it was Brian Saint that was tweeting about it, and he kind of spurred the discussion about it. This was also a topic that was discussed on the CODcast as well. And my personal opinion is that I do think coaches are I think they're an important part of a successful team. Do you have to have a coach to be a successful team? No, of course not. Look at TK. They won the first 2 defenses of the year with no coach. But coaches are only going to help, right? I heard, I think it was maybe Accuracy or someone talk, kind of coming across as relatively anti-coach. And I was like, look, they're only going to help, right? I'm not saying they're going to be like the aspect, the factor in winning a tournament, because of course they're not. There've been plenty of teams that have won major tournaments without coaches, but they're only going to help. They're only going to be that extra voice, that extra perspective on situations throughout the a team's gameplay. And I know there was the issue about how I think it was Brian Saint who was essentially he was going into scrims, he was loading into scrim lobbies and going on and choosing to spectate other teams and watch their breakoffs. And obviously the players had a big problem with that. Aix basically said, this is why people don't like coaches in lobbies. And as well as I know Accuracy was the one who was talking about how he doesn't want to make it easier on other teams by allowing coaches in their lobbies. And I thought that was rather petty, to be honest. I was, my thought was that, look, coaches are, with all the VODs out there of other teams playing, it's like, look, they're going to find the gameplay one way or another. So you're just being kind of petty when you don't allow coaches in your scrim lobbies. I mean, I just don't like, again, they're gonna find out your tendencies one way or another. They're gonna go through previous VODs of tournaments, previous VODs of scrims. I just don't really understand. I guess I can sort of get what Aki was saying, but I just fundamentally disagree and think that that's rather petty to just say, oh well, screw you, I don't want you in your lobby because you're gonna look at my tendencies. Dude, you realize how many VODs of your gameplay are already out there that they can just go and look up by themselves. I just thought it was rather petty, and I do think coaches do have a spot in competitive COD. And as far as coaches being allowed on stage, I think that I forget who brought it up. I think it was Nameless that brought it up, but he made a really good point how if you allow coaches back on stage, you could have someone in the stands holding up a sign that indicates that a team's going B on S&D, for example, and then hold up a different side that says they're going to go that indicates they're going to go A in S&D, for example. That was a really good point that I think that was a really fair point to make. That to me, if we're going to allow coaches back on stage during games, mid-series with a headset, I think that they either should be allowed to communicate like in CSGO, or we should just wait until we're allowed to we should just wait until we're allowed to have soundproof booths back on stage. Sorry, I can't talk today, guys. It's been a long day, but that's ultimately my fundamental belief when it comes to coaches. And I do think that they, again, they're only going to help your team, right? Like I mentioned earlier. So with that said, guys, that's going to do it for today. Not a whole lot to get to today. Beyond that, I am very excited for the Pro League, which is returning this week on the 14th. I will say that I've been really impressed with how CWL scheduled this year's, or put together this year's schedule. This was kind of a perfect little break we had in between events and stuff like that. It gave everyone time to get strapped down on their finals, all that. And I am ready to watch some more competitive COD, man. All these roster changes. I'm excited to see these new teams. And, the break was great, but I'm ready to get back into it, and I hope you guys are too. So make sure you guys tune into Pro League this week starting the 14th. And with that said, guys, that's going to do it for today. Be sure to follow me on Twitter. Be sure to share this episode if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to me on YouTube and iTunes. Leave us a rating and a review. That always helps with exposure, as well as for me to understand what you guys want to hear, what I can improve upon. I'm always trying to improve this podcast, make it the best it can be. With that said, guys, that's going to do it for today, and I will see you guys next Sunday.